Today at Executive Chat, we're going to meet Davide Grasso, CEO of Maserati. Davide, thanks for visiting Bocconi University.
Great to be here with you, Gianmario. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be here with you today.
So you're CEO of Maserati, a legendary brand for Italy, but particularly for the world. And you have gone through an important turnaround. Can you share us some tips of this turnaround and particularly some numbers of the business model?
Yeah, thanks, Gianmario. It's my pleasure actually to do this today because Maserati, it is a truly global business. We are a global brand, active. We have 4 different regions, and our business is evenly spread almost across the world with the 4 different regions. We're just coming from a 40% increase in our revenues from last year, and we just completed a turnaround that we started about 2.5 years ago. So we had a swing from being negative profitability to actually plus 5%, 5.1%. This is just the beginning for what we see will be a trajectory that will take us to a floor of 15%, which will be benchmark. So it's a great time to speak about Maserati right now.
So these are impressive numbers, and by the way, the industry is being revolutionized by the digital transformation. So someone says that cars today are computers with 4 wheels. What happens in luxury business like yours?
Well, it is true that the automotive industry is revolutionizing from so many different aspects. Digitalization, electrification, the taste of the customer and the expectations of the customers are changing. And especially if you think about the customer, which is what we call the modern luxury consumer, which is very global in nature and in mindset. It's making the industry change further. For us at Maserati, we see this more as an opportunity than a threat because we were in the journey of resetting and relaunching the brand. So to do that, we have to do 2 things. One is to understand and focus on the eternal values of the brand that are universal and don't change, which we have done. The second thing is to put the customer at the center, because we exist to serve the customer at the end of the day. And the desire of the customer towards modern cars or modern luxury cars are far exceeding the expectation of a computer on wheels, because we are way more than that. It's not only about digitalizing and removing friction, but also is providing comfort, information, providing extra safety. The car becomes a mix between your home, the extension of your body, your computer that allows you to get information and provide information, and communicating too, because like the things that you are wearing, we are wearing, the car communicates about who we are too. And it's especially true for a brand like Maserati.
Absolutely, and I assume also that the customer experience, given the importance that you give to customer in this context, also is empowered, but also changes, and the services that you have to provide are becoming more complicated.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an exercise in humility, I would say, because if you put the customer at the center, you really have to put yourself in his or her shoes. So it's really about transforming the entire experience. From the moment they think about Maserati, to the moment they actually buy Maserati, to the moment after they start driving Maserati, because that's when the journey really becomes material. It starts early. It starts when the first time that someone thinks, oh, let me research Maserati. That's the first step. Actually, it starts probably 1 step before. How do we make them think about Maserati, which is a real exercise in humility, to all the way through when they decide to change car to get them into another Maserati, because that's how you build loyalty. It's not about actually creating loyalty in the customer. It's about being a loyal brand.
Let me ask you one thing that is strictly connected to this one, because it's impressive to see your career. So you have been CMO in Nike, you've spent 25 years in Nike, you've been CEO of Converse, and then you move to Maserati, Stellantis Group, CEO, and again, you move from consumer good to OEM, which is not the regular and traditional suspect in terms of change. Your experience in consumer good has been important in this respect?
Absolutely. But also the experiencing, having a global journey behind me, hopefully still ahead of me. It really is an exercise in confidence balanced with humility, meaning two things. And these are things that I discussed with a really good friend of mine, which is a strategic advisor, as I chose to join the automotive industry, which is notoriously to be fairly insular from a senior leadership standpoint. I asked myself, why should I succeed in an industry where really few people came from outside, let alone succeeding? So there's two elements of it. One is what's similar, and then I'll tell you what's different, at least in my experience. Sure. The similarity is actually coming from the words of this very wise, actually is a professor of business, not in this esteemed institution, but another esteemed one. And he said, well, Davide, you know how to fly a plane. You had a journey of growth, reestablished that Converse. And the plane changes, but you know planes and you can find the route of the plane, and you just have to kind of trust your team and identify what are the different levers for this plane. Which I learned, it is absolutely true. It is true. It's like flying a plane. You have to have the humility and the confidence to understand where you can add value and when you have to step back and trust your team. So that's the similarity. The difference is, again, from a customer standpoint, and then from a business model standpoint, which are related. Sure. From a customer standpoint, the speed of the 17 years old and the industry that gravitates around that, which is the sports industry, it's very, very fast. Everything changes with a very fast pace. What's hot now, a year ago wasn't. So the way you engage and you get the insights has to be very, very fast. And the flexibility in the business model from an industrial standpoint is a consequence of that. Absolutely. In automotive, everything is actually has longer cycles, and has the business model is very much centered around fixed costs that you have to make decisions about early on. So the risk factor is much higher. And so you need to kind of really understand the consumer's insights earlier. And that's why I think you see more figures like mine joining the automotive industry, because it's less about the metal, it's more about the consumer and the movement of the consumer over the long term.
Davide, we're living a very complicated moment in these days. The pandemic was almost concluded, and the tragedy in the war in Ukraine started. How a leader, in general, how you're dealing with this at Maserati?
It's a very thoughtful and very relevant question, Gianmario. And in this moment, as leaders, our thoughts are going to all the populations in Ukraine and around the world that are impacted by war or by difficult crisis. And we hope these situations can be solved collectively, will be solved soon. It's important for us in this moment as leaders, and all of us and all of our audience are studying to become leaders, or we are in a leadership role just maybe in our family or in our community. We all have the responsibility to drive and build the future. As leaders, we are builders. Maserati, in a shop around the corner, in a society, in a family, we're builders. So it's our role and responsibility to continue with tenacity, resilience, confidence, and hope to build a better future. So it's really important to remember this. And it's very relevant also for us as Maserati, because just yesterday we launched our new model. We have a responsibility of thousands of families. And the belief is that we can build in these difficult moments. These are the moments when we can build a better future for the future generations.
These are very important words, and thank you so much for visiting Bocconi University, and I look forward to having you back with our students.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure, and anytime. Thank you. Thank you, Gianmario.